provide you with the lowest per GB rates, night or day. SLT 4G, driving you ever forward.
No need for influence. President Maithripala Sirisena urges the international community to let Sri Lanka resolve its own issues. Another price hike. Prices of a gas cylinder pushed up by 195 rupees from midnight. Gas distributors also concerned of the sector's stability.
If it collapses, it will be a disaster and an agony to the entire country.
Human rights and religion. Joint opposition demands an apology from Minister Mangala Samaravira over his recent tweet criticising the Archbishop of Colombo. The assassination plot. Voice samples obtained from anti-corruption movement director Namal Kumara, who says there are more telephone recordings to come. Tread with care. The US security advisor warns Iran, saying there will be hell to pay if it crosses the US. Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Eknaik. Now let's start with your local stories. President Maithripala Sirisena delivered his oration at the annual general debate of the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York today. The head of state urged the international community to let Sri Lanka resolve its own issues without influence or threats. He also encouraged the world leaders to have a fresh outlook on Sri Lanka. The annual general debate of the 73rd United Nations General Assembly commenced in New York last evening. Global leaders representing all member states of the United Nations are in attendance to discuss global issues under the theme Making the United Nations Relevant to All People, Global Leadership and Shared Responsibilities for Peaceful, Equitable and Sustainable Societies. President Maithripala Sirisena addressed the annual general debate on its first day at 3 a.m. Sri Lankan time.
His Excellency Maithripala Sirisena, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka.
Democracy and human rights have been strengthened over the past 3.5 years. I must remind you that it is not the same Sri Lanka which was there 3.5 years ago. We are much compassionate and humanitarian. Sri Lankan security forces defeated one of the most dangerous terrorist organizations in the world. That's the reason why Sri Lanka is currently undivided and enjoying sustainable peace. While acknowledging the sacrifices and efforts by my armed forces, I take this opportunity to thank them for all that they have done for the country. I ask the international community to view Sri Lanka from a new perspective. I respectfully ask you to let us resolve our own problems by ourselves. We as an independent nation do not need foreign influences or threats. Whatever the pain that was felt because of the decades-long conflict was felt by the people of Sri Lanka. I ask all of you to provide your support for my people in moving forward while alleviating their pain owing to the war. Thank you and may the Triple Gem bless you. Meanwhile, addressing the annual general debate earlier in the day, President of the United States, Donald Trump, had stern words for the United Nations Human Rights Council and the International Criminal Court.
So the United States took the only responsible course. We withdrew from the Human Rights Council, and we will not return until real reform is enacted. For similar reasons, the United States will provide no support and recognition to the International Criminal Court. As far as America is concerned, the ICC has no jurisdiction, no legitimacy, and no authority. The ICC claims near universal jurisdiction over the citizens of every country, violating all principles of justice, fairness, and due process. We will never surrender America's sovereignty to an unelected, unaccountable global bureaucracy. We are only going to give foreign aid to those who respect us and, frankly, are our friends. And we expect other countries to pay their fair share for the cost of their defense.
On Monday, President Maithripala Sirisena met with the Chief Operations Officer of the US government-owned Millennium Challenge Corporation, Brock Bierman. During the meeting, Millennium Challenge Corporation promised a $480 million grant to Sri Lanka for several development projects, including transport infrastructure development, road development, bus modernisation, control of traffic congestion and traffic management. Now, the convener of the Global Sri Lankan Forum, Dr. Nalaka Godaheva, stresses the need for a counter-resolution to the one the United States brought against Sri Lanka with the co-sponsorship of the Sri Lankan government. Speaking exclusively to First at 9 today in Geneva, Dr. Godaheva said the focus of Sri Lankan patriots who represent the island nation at the 39th session of the United Nations Human Rights Commission have shifted to getting the international community on board to achieve that goal. Meanwhile, former chairman of the Sri Lanka Human Rights Commission, Dr. Pratibha Mahanamaheva, addressed the main session of the UNHRC yesterday. Dr. Mahanamaheva urged the UNHRC to launch a criminal investigation on LTT financiers under the UN Global Counter-Terrorism Strategy.
The Durban Declaration recognizes that racism is a global concern, yet no country can claim to be totally free of racism. The LTT, most ruthless terrorist organization that brutalized Sri Lanka for nearly 3 decades, actively promoted racism and was engaged in ethnic cleansing in the northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a country where, irrespective of religion, race or creed, everybody enjoys same rights. Some of the top businessmen, educationists, politicians, judges, lawyers, doctors, accountants, Supreme Court judges and other professionals are from minority communities. Even the current opposition leader in the parliament, Mr. Sambandhan, and former opposition leader, Mr. Appapille Amithalingam, was brutally killed by LTT. One of the most distinguished foreign minister, Mr. Lakshman Kadragam, was a Tamil, and he could have been potential candidate for premiership if not for the fact that he was brutally killed by LTT terrorists. We have observed that some of the LTT sympathizers who preach here at UNHRC and protected to be victims of discrimination have not even visited Sri Lanka since the war ended to know the ground realities. Since the LTT was defeated in 2009, Sri Lanka, including Sinhalese, Tamils, Muslim, Burghers and other communities have joined, and also they live in together with a very peaceful man. Only that remains in done identify those who are responsible for the terrorist financing in Sri Lanka and had to take legal action, as long as former LTT supporters at large who will still sympathize with ideology and large impossible remain in Sri Lanka. And therefore, we request the UNHRC to initiate international criminal investigation on financing LTT under the global terror strategy.
Meanwhile, convener of the Global Sri Lankan Forum, Dr. Nalaka Godaheva, spoke exclusively to First at 9 today on the objective of Sri Lankan patriotic organisations at the 39th session of the UNHRC.
Even though the LTT was defeated militarily, the Islamists did not give up their fight. They selected a fresh battleground. That battleground is UNHRC. Over the years, they managed to get several resolutions passed against Sri Lanka. Some patriots gradually started realizing that if they completely ignore what is happening at UNHRC, in the long run, it is going to be a huge disadvantage for Sri Lanka, particularly when Resolution 30/1 was passed unanimously in 2015, Sri Lanka started facing a new threat. The extremist Tamil diaspora usually use about 15 to 20 different organizations to come and make presentations at UNHRC. Right now, the patriotic Sri Lankans also have several organizations representing us. 30/1 resolution implementation period ends in March 2019. Thereafter, UNHRC will reconsider the process and most likely table a fresh resolution. So before that, we need to get the international community to our side and try to get a counter resolution against 30/1. That is what we are trying to do this time. And we are now asking UNHRC, how come you did not take into account that LTTE is a terrorist organization? Even though LTT is dead and gone, those who finance LTT are still at large. So we are urging UNHRC to go to a higher level and use the global counter-terrorism strategy of UN and start an investigation on terrorist financing.
In the meantime, Global Sri Lankan Forum organised a photo exhibition in front of the UNHRC headquarters in Geneva, portraying acts of terror perpetrated by the LTTE during years of conflict in Sri Lanka. The exhibition commenced yesterday and will conclude tonight. Moving on to other local stories, the joint opposition is demanding an apology from Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira over his recent tweet where he appeared to criticise Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, over his remarks on human rights. In the meantime, the United National Party distanced itself from the tweet, saying Minister Samaravira didn't express the stance of the government through the tweet but his personal views. Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, recently made a statement on human rights during a function held at St. Matthew Roman Catholic Church in Ekala. Human rights is the latest religion in the world. People of our country started following religion a long time ago. If we follow religion, we don't have to talk about human rights. Those who stick to human rights are those who don't follow religions. Responding to the statement made by the Cardinal, Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaravira took to Twitter to say, quote, "The need for human rights was an outcome of the marauding religious zealots of the Inquisition and the Crusaders where non-believers were massacred en bloc," unquote. He went on to say, quote, "Pity, the Cardinal always seems to get things wrong in trying to be a populist," unquote. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, in the meantime, convened a media briefing today to express his objections to the minister's tweet at his official residence. Human rights are embedded in our religions. What the Cardinal said was that it need not be a new phenomenon. The Minister of Finance, when he has so much to do, made a statement which is not relevant to him to destroy the government. We expect a statement from the Prime Minister, and if the Minister is unwilling to apologise, as the Catholic community, we will take to streets. We want to know if the Minister of Finance and Mass Media express the stance of the government, because we look down upon it. In the meantime, 2 UNP parliamentarians also expressed their views on the controversial statement. This is not the stance of the government, but the opinion of the minister. The joint opposition is attempting to take political advantage out of this situation. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasises the need for Sri Lanka to establish a complete export economy in order to face challenges such as the rupee depreciation. The Premier was speaking at an event held in Kurunegala today. The newly constructed 3-storey building of the Malayadeva Girls' College in Kurunegala was declared open under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe today. There are pros and cons to globalization. The current global economic crisis is one of the negatives. Although we are affected by it, I asked both the Finance Minister and the Minister of Education not to reduce monetary allocations for the education sector next year. This is not an economic problem we created, but we are heavily affected by it because we need to pay off foreign debt. If we didn't allocate $3 billion for that purpose this year, we wouldn't be facing this problem at all. We are supposed to pay off another $4 billion worth of foreign debt next year, borrowed by the previous government. Households and the country are affected by all of this. In order for us to face challenges such as the rupee's depreciation and pay off debt without borrowing more, we must establish a complete export economy for the country. The Consumer Affairs Authority has signed off on a price hike for gas with effect from this midnight. The move will see the price of a 12.5 kilogram gas cylinder going up by 195 rupees to 1,733 rupees. Gas companies recently requested a price hike for domestic LP gas, citing price increases in the global market. Taking the request into consideration, the Cost of Living Committee recommended to push the price up by 195 rupees. Accordingly, the Consumer Affairs Authority declared that the price hike will come into effect from midnight today, which will see the price of a 12.5 kilogram domestic gas cylinder increasing by 195 rupees from 1,538 rupees to 1,733 rupees. In such a backdrop, the Liquid Petroleum Gas Distributors Association of Sri Lanka warns that gas distribution is facing a crisis which could impact the economy unless necessary steps are taken to address their concerns.
අවුරුදු 22ක් පුරාවට අපි මේ ගෑස් බෙදා හැරීමේ ක්‍රියාවලියේ නිරත වෙනවා.
35 dealers present today distribute 4.3 million domestic gas cylinders across the country. The channel margin for distribution of gas and the transport margin, which are unrevised since 2007, should be amended according to the current economic climate. Therefore, we call for a reasonable increase in the channel margin to 12%, with 7.5% to distributors and 4.5% to dealers. The transport margin should be revised to a minimum of 7 rupees per kilometre within the Colombo district, with a sufficient increase in percentage for all other districts.
Our sincere motive is not to put either the existing government or the general public into a difficulty, but to make them aware if it collapses, it will be a disaster and an agony to the entire country.
Moving on to one of the hot topics of recent days, Operations Director of the organisation, the Anti-Corruption Movement, Namal Kumara, who revealed an alleged conspiracy to assassinate the President, arrived at the Department of Government Analyst this morning to provide voice samples. It was accompanied, or he was rather accompanied, by the CID in line with an order issued by the Colombo Fort Magistrate Lanka Jayaratne yesterday. Operations Director of the organisation, the Anti-Corruption Movement, Namal Kumara, recently revealed information of DIG Nalaka de Silva of the Terrorist Investigation Division allegedly conspiring to assassinate President Maithripala Sirisena and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, citing several recorded telephone conversations he had with the DIG. Namal Kumara arrived at the CID premises around 9 this morning and was accompanied to the Department of Government Analyst by the CID. When leaving the premises, he said he has more recordings of telephone conversations with DIG Nalaka de Silva. Namal Kumara was questioned by the media on the Indian national who was arrested according to a complaint by him. It was also said that the Indian national had given evidence of an alleged attempt to assassinate former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and his family. He arrived at my house and cautioned me about my security. He told me about some sophisticated assassinations. I was suspicious and made a complaint to Warakapola police. I also informed the CID. Meanwhile, an official from the Indian High Commission said that the arrested Indian national had been suffering from a mental illness since 2000. He also said that the relevant information is already imparted to the Sri Lankan authorities. He added that the Indian High Commission will assist a thorough and a professional investigation into the matter. Meanwhile, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa also commented on the alleged conspiracy while addressing a media briefing in Colombo. The assassination attempt is not only on me, but my family members as well. This government should take better action on our security. But if someone thinks that I won't participate in public rallies, fearing for my life, they are mistaken. This is a grave revelation, and similar reports surfaced earlier as well, but those were halted by some senior police officials. The government's obligation is to inform us when such reports are received. We are not informed by the police, at least on this report. Meanwhile, police spokesperson SP Ruwan Gunasekara also briefed the media about the Indian national arrested by the CID. His name is Mersil Thomas. This Indian national has not revealed any assassination conspiracies. The B report by the CID given to the Fort Magistrates Court yesterday also did not mention any assassination conspiracy. Former Secretary of Defence Gotabaya Rajapaksa refutes suggestions that he cited names of certain persons in the statement given to the CID of the alleged abduction and assault of journalist Keith Noya. Speaking to media following an event held in Colombo yesterday, the former Defence Secretary was adamant that he did not drop any names during his statement. A National Day celebration of the United Arab Emirates was worked off at the country's embassy in Colombo yesterday with the attendance of Speaker Karu Jayasuriya, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa. No, I have not complained about anyone. The CID will find the culprits. If they conduct a fair investigation, they can find them. The CID does doesn't summon anyone based on my statement.
I
got to know of it now via a news alert. There are officers who worked with me at the CID, and if they execute their duty like they did back then, they will make a breakthrough. The assassination plot also involves the country's first citizen, and it is a serious case. If there is such a conspiracy, it should be looked into. An administration under me. I think people await an administration under former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. In the meantime, Minister of Highways and Road Development Kabir Hashim also expressed his views on the possibility of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa coming back to power. Some are daydreaming. Rajapaksa claimed on several occasions that he will come back to power, one of which being by the Vesak Poya. None of them materialized, and these dreams too will be the same. Former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwat Kabral attributes the rapid depreciation of the Sri Lankan rupee to the economic mismanagement of the current government. He was addressing a media briefing organised by the organisation Voice for Justice in Colombo today. When former President Mahinda Rajapaksa took office, the Sri Lankan rupee was at 102 rupees and 12 cents against the dollar. And by the end of 2014, it was only depreciated to 131 rupees and 5 cents against the dollar. That means the annual average depreciation was at 2.8% during his tenure. Back then, the government had to face a lot of challenges. The previous government and the central bank didn't let you feel those external shocks. But from 2015 onwards, the rupee depreciated by 9.1% annually. What is their excuse? They say it is the strengthening of the American economy. Everyone knew that the American economy would be strengthened. When someone advised, they defamed him through social media. I got to know that the central bank has released a large amount of foreign exchange to the international market because the exporters don't bring in money. It is difficult for the importers to cope with this situation. If they can't do that, they should have said so.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. The latest data from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka highlights that foreigners had gradually exited from Sri Lanka's government securities and pulled out over 8.8 billion rupees in a week from the 12th to the 19th of September. Earlier data showed foreigners had pulled out over 193.81 billion rupees in just 3.5 years from December 2014. According to the central bank data, as of the 24th of December in 2014, foreigners held over 453.44 billion rupees worth of government securities, whilst as of the 19th of September this year, the value of government securities held by foreigners had fallen to 259.626 billion rupees, which had further fallen from 268.438 billion rupees as at the 12th of September. Now, a high-level conference aiming to prepare Sri Lanka for natural disasters and climate change was held under the auspices of State Minister of Finance and Mass Media Eran Wickramaratne in Colombo yesterday. Organised by the World Bank, the conference saw the participation of policymakers and stakeholders in Sri Lanka's development community to discuss concepts of adaptive social protection. Views of the impact of climate change were also expressed at the event.
The key concerns for Sri Lanka are now less about extreme poverty and they are more about vulnerability to an array of risks. And depending on the level of vulnerability, there is always a danger that the progress made can actually backtrack. And according to a recent World Bank report launched last week here in Colombo, the rising temperatures and changing monsoon rainfall patterns from climate change could cost Sri Lanka 7% of GDP. But in addition, it could actually depress the living standards of nearly half of the country's population by 2050. We estimate that a further 5.7% of the population is at risk of falling into poverty if a shock reduces their income by 20%.
Crisis and disasters in the world is, in a sense, kind of normal or a new normal. Sri Lanka is very much a part of the new normal. We need social protection systems. As you know, Sri Lanka also has a fast aging population compared to any country in the world. So our vulnerability, in a sense, could be even more. So it's about systems, but it's also about resources. How do we actually cope with this? So both are needed.
Sri Lankan shares have recovered from their lowest close in nearly 5 years hit in the previous session and ended about 1% higher today as investors picked up battered stocks. The all-share price index rose 0.92% to 5,887.52, pulling away from its lowest close since the 18th of December in 2013. The market turnover was 318.5 million rupees and the foreign earnings were 49.6 million rupees. We have Nisansala Kurupundali from First Capital Holdings with a full report.
Renewed buying interest stemmed from selected investors, market bouncing back from yesterday's near 5-year low. The index gained 54 points, which was the largest single gain in 10 weeks. Market closed in green, reversing the negative sentiment witnessed for the last 3 trading sessions on the gains made by John Keells and Sri Lanka Telecom. Both turnover and volume improved compared to the previous day, and a net foreign outflow was witnessed for the 6th consecutive day with high foreign participation.
Time to look at what's happening around the world. US National Security Advisor John Bolton sent out a warning to Iran's rulers that there will be hell to pay if they harm US citizens or its allies. His comments came hours after President Donald Trump accused Iran of sowing chaos, death and destruction across the Middle East. The US recently imposed sanctions after leaving the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. US National Security Advisor John Bolton yesterday warned Iran's clerics that if the country crosses the US, there will be serious consequences. The former US envoy to the UN was speaking at an anti-Iran conference in New York. US President Donald Trump, meanwhile, is due to lead a UN Security Council meeting on Iran and the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons today.
According to the mullahs in Tehran, we are the great Satan, lord of the underworld, master of the raging inferno. So I might imagine they would take me seriously that when I assure them today that if you cross us, our allies or our partners, if you harm our citizens, if you continue to lie, cheat, and deceive, yes, there will indeed be hell to pay. The murderous regime and its supporters will face significant consequences if they do not change their behavior.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. Now, Sri Lanka Cricket today revealed reasons behind their decision to drop Angelo Matthews from Sri Lanka's one-day international squad against England. Addressing a media briefing today, Chairman of the National Selection Committee, Graham Lebroy, said Matthews' physical fitness for cricket was not up to the necessary standard. He, however, added that Angelo Matthews will not be dropped from the selected squad for the upcoming World Cup.
Well, you don't need a special reason. But what happened, unfortunately, we lost to South Africa. So being the highest scorer, we ended up on the losing side of the series. We would have been expected somebody to score the highest run and be in the winning. But with Angelo, you knew that he had an hamstring injury right along for the last 1 year and been nursing and treating him. So basically, he also went for 4 days to Australia to take 2 injections, and he had an epidural as well to get it going. So I think we saw that he had slowed down in the game, and his cricket fitness was not up to mark. We had a challenge of he taking quick singles and running two. Also, we transferred pressure onto the rest of the batters. So we had a long chat with him, actually 2 discussions, and we basically had to take that decision.
His injury problems are not a surprise. This has been going on for a while, and in the past, even the physios and all have said that his time needs to be managed. Considering we're only 8 months away from the World Cup, does this mean that he's out of the World Cup contention?
Certainly not. Certainly not. We can even think basically that this is a way to manage a player as well, and that's what we have said. We have an opportunity to go back and train. We even talking to the physio and the trainers to see how he can address the shortcomings. So definitely not out from the World Cup.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Moving on to your weather forecast now. Northern and eastern parts of the island are, as usual, expected to boast high temperatures, but temperatures will be much milder than the past few weeks, with the highest expected at 31 degrees Celsius. The lowest temperature can be expected from the Central Hills at 20 degrees Celsius, and as per the rain forecast, it's going to be a rainy day tomorrow with showers or thunder showers forecast for all the districts during the day. Now let's take a look at your city-by-city forecast. And that's it from all of us here at First and 9. And before we go, we'd like to take you to the beautiful coastline of Tangle in the southern province. Tangle is considered a perfect getaway to those who are fond of golden beaches and seamless blue sea. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.